Hey guys, it's Ryan here with HobbiesofaMan. Once again, today we're doing another film review. Today we're looking at Superman 2025. I went to watch it yesterday on the 12th. It was my birthday. My sister took me out for lunch and then to the movies. And it was a great experience. I really enjoyed it. This video is going to be a bit spoilery. I'm not going to go super deep into spoilers. At least I don't want to. Because I think that you should go watch this yourselves in the movie theater and enjoy yourselves with it. But I do want to talk about some plot points here and there. Nothing, I don't think, particularly super massively important. Just kind of different moments that happened that kind of pulled my attention a bit. So overall, the movie is really fun. I liked it a lot. I'd say I would give it an 8 out of 10. Not necessarily a 10 out of 10, just because some of the stuff that happened in it isn't necessarily quite my favorite in terms of how it kind of ties into itself. But I think that it was a great movie. I had a fun time with it. I would watch it again. Maybe not necessarily in theaters, at least not at full price, which in my case is about $10 per ticket. But at least in the matinee, which is when I prefer going to the movies, before 4 p.m. But I might watch it at a discounted price. On Tuesdays here in my city, they do discount prices at Cinemark, where the ticket is $5.50. And so I would probably watch it that way. And I would definitely watch it at home or through streaming. And I would probably buy it on DVD. I think I probably will buy it on DVD when it comes out, or Blu-ray at least, when it comes out. Maybe not necessarily at full price. Maybe I'll wait a few months for it to drop down from like $35 to $20 or so dollars. But I would definitely own it eventually, right? So that maybe that kind of means something more to you than just a star rating, so that's why I'm mentioning that. But the movie is good. It doesn't give you an origin story. It doesn't give you the basic idea of Superman. It just shows you that Superman exists. He's been existing as an entity for 3 years. Clark Kent is the main go-to between Superman and the world, because he self-interviews himself and does articles for the Daily Planet. He has been dating Lois for about 3 months, and he has realized that he loves her, but he hasn't really told her at the beginning of the movie. His friend Jimmy Olsen is there, and they have a great relationship. It's pretty funny. Jimmy Olsen's a bit of a chick magnet, which I think is pretty funny. I'm not a big, I've not read too many Superman comic books that also feature Jimmy Olsen, at least very prominently. And so I don't really know too much about him, but I do know enough of the basics, right? He's a funny guy. He's the photographer character to the reporters, and he's kind of like a silly character that ends up kind of involved in a lot of shenanigans, right? And that is basically what we get in this movie from him. And Lois Lane is, of course, a no-nonsense reporter. She's kind of a bit of a hard ass, a bit difficult around the edges, but ultimately someone that really meshes well with Superman, right? And with Clark Kent. And we get that in this movie as well. We get Lex Luthor, who is diabolical. Like, this man is like straight up like a menace and a problem, and as cartoonishly evil as we like to think that, you know, actual rich people are, maybe even more so, because he like actively kills people in the movie. So he is not portrayed like some weird tech genius or some weird, like, you know, Elon Musk type character. Like, this is properly Lex Luthor, right? He's intelligent, he's somewhat suave, he knows what he wants, and he's very self-aware. He just cannot deal with the fact that people like Superman more than they like him, right? And that makes him kind of go off and do crazy stuff. And what else is there? There's the Justice Gang, or Justice League. I guess they'd be international, right? Because they're not really the proper Justice League just yet. It's Guy Gardner, it's Kendra Saunders, Hawkgirl, and it's Mr. Terrific, right? And these characters are there to show us kind of a few things. One, the superheroes have existed for a while, and that Superman's not the only one. That there are corporate heroes that are, you know, given money by the government in order to assist, and that, you know, there is a larger world, right? There's metahumans, there's people that are space cops, there's Mr. Terrific, who's just a tech, genius, and there's obviously other things going on. There's monsters, there's aliens, there's all sorts of stuff, right? And so the movie and this is kind of where my criticism of the movie starts, is not quite a single cohesive storyline from point A to point B to show us the origin, then a major issue, and then a resolution to that issue that hopefully leads to more growth, right? That's not the point of this movie. It's not like Iron Man. This is more like, there's a lot of people that are trying to compare it to Star Wars. I don't think that that's the case, but I understand what they mean. This movie is about showing you a universe. It's about world building. It's about you understanding that this world exists, that it exists within the confines of the film, but it also exists beyond the confines of the film, that there are more things going on and there's pieces moving across the board behind the scenes, right? It is showing us a lived-in world, a world that will exist before and after and during, and there's going to be stuff that we're just not going to be able to see, or that we probably shouldn't care to see, right? We don't necessarily have to track every second of every character's lives, right? And that's what this movie is trying to show you. It's trying to show you a world that is there and that we'll hopefully get to see every once in a while, right? And so that's a bit different from the way that Marvel did its thing, right? This is a bit of a different approach, but I think it's one that I like. I think it works because it helps to really solidify that comic book feel, right? Characters come in and out, characters exist, and characters will continue to exist, and hopefully we'll get to see them throughout the movies, right? But this is also where my complaint, my only real complaint, the reason why it's not a 10 out of 10 comes out for me. And that's because the movie, even though it does have a central plot and a, beginning and an end, doesn't necessarily feel like a single story. It feels like a few vignettes here at the beginning, a few vignettes here in the middle, and then kind of like a final larger vignette that happens to tie into the previous ones, right? It's I guess the difference is pretty minuscule, but it's kind of hard to explain. It doesn't feel like a single story. It feels like portions of different stories that tie into together in order to give us this kind of mostly cohesive kind of vibe, right? And the reason I say that is because that structure feels more like a television show or like tuning in and out of the movie than it does feel like a single movie, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm explaining it correctly, but it doesn't feel like a single story. It feels like moments from different stories that all kind of link up together into a single film that we got to show, or that we got shown to us, that we got to see in a single 2-hour span, instead of like one movie that has that traditional structure, right? And so what that does is makes the movie feel less than complete, in my opinion. And that's why it's an 8 out of 10 for me, not a 10 out of 10. Because I liked it, I really enjoyed it. I think that the character work is phenomenal. The fact that Superman is kind of a corny, jovial guy is good. The fact that Lois Lane is this kind of like hard around the edges kind of character is good. The fact that Jimmy Olsen is kind of silly, but a bit different from Clark in the way that he's silly. And that Lex Luthor is just maniacal and crazy, and all of these other characters have very distinct personalities and ways of interacting with Superman and with each other that just feels real and honest. I love that part, right? I love the world building aspect as well, but I don't like that the story feels like it suffered a bit from that, if that makes sense, right? So I want to stop harping on that because I think I kind of tried to explain it a few different ways and kind of just didn't. I kind of explained it the same way. So let's move on from that. That's really my only real complaint. There is a secondary complaint, I guess, that ties into some of the issues that I had that I just outlined. And that is that there is this overarching kind of like idea, right? Clark Kent, Superman, is someone that is not from Earth, but is deeply human. And he is deeply human and he wants to protect the world and Earth because he thinks that that is his duty. And he thinks it's his duty because his parents, his biological parents, left him a message telling him that he was being sent to Earth as their hope, as their greatest treasure, and that he was supposed to take care of those there since he would be someone with incredible power. At some point in the movie, Lex Luthor gets his hands on that recording. He manages to fix some of it because it was damaged halfway through. And when he fixes it, apparently the rest of the message is kind of like this, like Super Saiyan, or maybe kind of like a Voltramite kind of concept, which is that Clark Kent is sent to Earth by his parents. Kal-El is sent to Earth by his parents because he will be powerful, but because he can also usurp the humanity and the humanity of the characters there and being stronger than them, and so therefore rule them, right? And the thing is that I don't think that worked properly in the movie. Like, it works to make Luthor feel that he's right. It works to alienate Superman from the populace, but it doesn't work in the way that the story is portrayed, because it doesn't really make sense, in my opinion, for the message to be that diametrically opposed between one portion and the next, right? It almost feels like it was edited, and we'll maybe never find out that that's true, but something about the way that they explained that it was real and that there was no possible way that it was edited feels fake, and that makes it so that doesn't quite land for me. So the message, and this makes more sense when you watch the movie, because I'm trying to not spoil too much, right? Although that's not really that big of a spoiler, right? But the message, being wrong is what leads Clark to, affirm himself as Superman better. But it also just doesn't work for me because it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like that's actually what was said in it. Because the emotions in the characters as they express themselves doesn't match what they're saying, right? It feels really weird. It doesn't work for me. And so that was kind of a complaint, and maybe that's a bigger complaint than the other thing that I mentioned, but it was one that I don't mind as much, because I think maybe on a rewatch I'll understand it better. But that was kind of one plot point or one moment in the movie that just doesn't work for me. Everything else works really, really well. We get Metamorpho, the Element Man, show up as well. We get this really nice cameo, I guess is what you would call it, at the end of the movie that directly leads into the next possible project that relates to Superman entities or characters, and I think that's really fun. I really liked it. As someone that's a big fan of this, one of the stories of this character, I loved it. I thought it was great. So I really enjoyed that. Crypto was a funny character because he is really a rapscallion, right? He is someone, or a character, I guess he's not a someone. He is a something, a dog, that really embodies all of the like difficulties of dogs without being like bad. And there's a certain innocence to the way that the Crypto does this stuff, where yeah, he's a bit unruly, but also it's meaningful, and it allows us to understand his relationship with Clark and the relationship of like a man and a dog, and it also humanizes Clark a lot in a way. So I like it. I think it's really cool. It works out really nicely. I think everything in the movie was good. There's some small issues here and there. It's not a perfect 10 out of 10, but it was a great solid start to the series, or to the franchise, and I'm looking forward to watching more in this story. I think the standout character was probably Mr. Terrific. I think that a lot of people are going to love him, and hopefully that means that we get to see more stuff coming out with him. I know he was in the CW Arrowverse at one point, but this version is a lot more entertaining, in my opinion. He's a lot cooler, and I think it'll be interesting to see that, right? There's also some, rumors that there might be a Jimmy Olsen show, and I think that'd be really fun, because you could play it like a sitcom, or like kind of like The Office, right? Where it's like Jimmy and crew at the Daily Planet, and then on the side, Jimmy has to do these really crazy, zany adventures. And it might be a one-season show, right? Where it's episodic. It doesn't have to have an overarching storyline. It's just like Jimmy Olsen, 10 different days in his life, and he's going through these different zany situations. I think that'd be really, really fun. And that would be really enjoyable. I would like it a lot. And there's also supposed to be a Mr. Terrific show, and that would be kind of cool. But Mr. Terrific, at least in the way that he was playing the movie, would be someone that requires a ride-along character. And I'm not sure what sort of character would work for that, right? Because in the movie, the other characters function as a ride-along, the people that he explains stuff to. He would need like a Watson character, right? To his Sherlock Holmes. And I'm not sure if there is a character like that in the comic books, right? I guess if you did the Terrifics or like a Doom Patrol kind of situation, it might work out, but it doesn't seem like it's possible to have a show just with him as like the core, right? Because like a show like a Jimmy show would have like Lois Lane and Superman in it in some fashion, whereas the Mr. Terrific show would feel just like a Justice League show if it was like the Justice Gang characters in it, right? So I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, like I said, 8 out of 10 movie, pretty great, really phenomenal, great start to the series, to the franchise, but not quite perfect. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I think it's fine. You know, we have to stop expecting movies to be 100% perfect from the get-go, right? We have to give them a little bit of leeway so that eventually over time they become better in their franchise, right? But at the same time, it's also like, well, I'm paying a lot of money to watch this, and there's being a lot of money spent on these, and they're not being made in the best way possible. That also is kind of like understandable. So I'm not really sure where I stand on this, but I liked it. I thought it was great. I recommend you guys watch it in the theaters, and those are my thoughts there. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and see you guys later.